Good evening, viewers out in Portugal. I say a very warm welcome to you as you join me this evening. Likewise in France, likewise in United Kingdom, Mauritania, Yugoslavia, and I've just seen another country, Mexico. I thank you so much for joining me today, whilst I welcome those in the Zoom area. I am Erelu Tunwashe. That is my traditional title. However, I am Honorary Alderman, which is a title that belongs to England. Honorary Alderman Erelu Lola Ayorinde, a stateswoman of England. It's a much cherished privilege to welcome you all today. In particular, those who again have joined me on this journey of ensuring we keep misunderstandings away from the communities that forms the Federal Republic of Nigeria. In particular, in order to enable community cohesion. That is extremely important, whatever our visions are, most especially on this very topical issue of in or out of Nigeria, being advocated by different sections of the communities within the geographical area, I would say known as British Nigeria. So why are we here today? We're here, as I said before this formal starting point, that this event operates like a court. And I do mean that, in that the evidence that is being sought is in favor of an important topic. Let me say, British Nigeria pre and post independence. Two important aspects. One, who did the British leave in charge of Nigeria? Are the British friends or enemies? Hopefully, my very competent speakers of today would be able to do justice to that. Let me take you through the order for today. My keynote guest speaker is someone known as Dele Ogun. He's a lawyer and a historian, the convener of an important group called Fatherland Group and chairman of Yoruba Foundation. In a moment, I will invite him to give evidence that will commence with a video clip. I will make the relevant individual who will put that on for us, a co-host, in a moment. He will be followed by Professor Solomon Ekundayo Salako, a professor at Liverpool Hope Business School, and Archbishop Desmond Tutu Center for War and Peace Studies. He will reintroduce himself formally. It's always a very warm welcome to him. Thank you, Professor, for all you continue to do to enable us to develop a better understanding of the legal aspects, in particular, of all we do. Finally, well, not finally, I have got somebody I've known over the years. It's a much cherished privilege to be able to welcome His Excellency Ambassador Dr. Grant Heyobuche. When the right time comes, I will introduce him. Then Professor Lutayo Adeshina of University of Ibadan, thank you so much for your time over the period of, I would say, 4 years now, since I have come across you, perhaps more. This evening, you will be the last speaker, and your emphasis will be on the importance of history. Again, may I appeal to all the guests in the studio, the Zoom area, please mute yourself. The system I have has the capacity to remove you from the Zoom area. If it does, you cannot re-enter. So I appeal to you. I'm going to mute everybody again and allow my speakers to unmute themselves. Just a moment, please. There's somebody with a little child. May I invite you to exit this Zoom area? It's a very special appeal. Please exit the Zoom area. I'll be very grateful if you can. Thank you very much indeed. Now, let me co-host Fatherhood Group. Let's see. Fatherland Group. My apologies. Let's have a look at that. I want to try and make somebody a co-host so that we can do the first bit. Right, okay. Right, Fatherland Group, welcome. Let me co-host you. Right, let's have a look. I do apologize. The system. We're there. Fatherland Group, I'm going to make you a co-host now. Yes. Okay. Over to you.
In a colonial office plan for the defense of the empire, there was a distinction to be drawn between decolonization and independence. There will be elections, but no electoral contests. How this was done in the 1956 elections to the regional assemblies was revealed by Harold Smith in his unpublished memoirs. At this juncture, the order arrived which was to change my life. It had come through the chain of command, apparently from the Governor-General Robertson himself. It was addressed to me personally. Perhaps my work had come to the Governor-General's attention. I was much too modest to make that assumption. The order directed me to arrange for all Nigerian staff of the department and all departmental vehicles to proceed to the minister, Festus Okoti-Ebo's constituency, for the duration of the election campaign to work under the minister's orders and to get his NCNC candidates elected. This was a covert operation and a cover story was needed. I was to devise a survey of migrant labour covering the minister's constituency. My reply was brief. No, I wrote on the minute sheets. This would be a criminal act. It is no exaggeration to say that the tactics to which the combination of Robertson and Macpherson resorted in the implementation of the Colonial Office's plan were responsible for the failure of democracy in Nigeria. This was where the practice of rigging elections and the corruption of the political system began. A key objective of the British at the 1957 conference was to secure agreement to the creation of an office of Federal Prime Minister and to an all-Nigerian Federal Council of Ministers presided over by the Governor-General, whose members will be appointed by the Governor-General on the Prime Minister's recommendation. The principle was innocent enough to sell, but the devil lay in the choice of Prime Minister. There was no plan for the post to be filled by electoral contest. This was politics by selection, and it was Governor Robertson who would be selecting the person who would be the first Prime Minister. Long before the idea of the new office was presented to the delegates at the conference, he had made his choice in Tafawa Balewa of the MPC. The grooming of Balewa for his role as Prime Minister had in fact begun long before. He had been one of the two Nigerian ministers who represented Nigeria at the 1953 West African Forces Conference, which held in Lagos in April 1953. He also attended the meetings of the West African Military Council, which followed. Tragically, Balewa's colleagues' comment that only death would free him from Lagos was to prove a prophecy, as Sherwood Smith's response on 19th of February 1957 made it clear that he had no choice but to fulfill the role for which he had been chosen. His only comfort was to be the assurance that neither he nor the North would be left to walk alone in the cause. Abubakar accepted my advice. In the meantime, preparations were going forward for the 1957 Constitutional Conference, and before leaving Lagos for London, he wrote to me again. He wished me to prepare for him personally 2 papers. In one, he asked me to set out what, in my view, were the essential requirements for a new nation aspiring to independence. In the other paper, he asked me to lay down what I thought should be the minimum safeguards that the North should demand before finally committing itself to independence. The first paper presented no great difficulty, but when it came to the second, I had to stress that constitutional safeguards would not be worth the paper on which they were written once the legislature made up its mind to scrap them. It had also to be remembered that, in the ultimate result, it will be the armed forces of the state, the army and the Nigerian police, on whose discipline and loyalty the government of the day might have to depend, maybe for survival. It was therefore of great importance that the composition of both forces, both as regards officers and men, should represent a reasonably balanced cross-section of the major ethnic groups in the Federation. With this vital tip-off on the trump card which control of the army and the police represented within any democratic arrangement, the North was ready to take on the educated natives who had only been schooled in the art of constitutional government. On May 23rd, the delegates assembled in Lancaster House. The Secretary of State, Mr. Lennox Boyd, presided, and this time the regional governors were present in addition to the Governor-General. But our part was largely played in personal discussions in less formal surroundings. In the conference chamber, it was for the politicians to hold the stage. Thank you very much for that background paper. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dele Ogun. I'm again grateful to Irinu for convening this event. As she has explained, it is in the nature of court proceedings. Conveniently, I happen to be a trial lawyer, qualified as a barrister in 2 jurisdictions and practicing as a solicitor advocate in England and Wales. So I am accustomed to investigating evidence, to joining dots, and to persuading an audience, a critical audience, as to the findings based on that evidence. The reading that you have just heard is from the history of Nigeria that I wrote and which was published in 2017. And it was the product of 20 years of patient research and 5 years of laborious writing, with a view to explaining what is really wrong with our country and why things are the way they are. It was very much an evidence-led exercise, and the evidence is set out in the book for critical examination by everybody else. So nothing is secret. Everything that is said can be cross-referenced and double-checked. The conclusion that I was led to on the evidence was that the British handed power over to the North, and specifically the Fulani, And so that reading was in support of the first part of the issue that I was required to address, which was who did the British leave in charge of Nigeria. You heard there the evidence of the Balewa having been selected. This was democracy by selection, having been selected as the prime minister, such that he had the advantage of incumbency from 1957. He was the incumbent prime minister. No Nigerians chose him. It was chosen by Governor Robertson. The issue then became, come the elections, which were supposed to be the independence elections, who would now be the prime minister? Again, as I said, the advantage of incumbency was already on seat, but they went further than that, because as we know, an alliance government emerged because no one party of the majors, Action Group, NCNC, and NPC, no one party had an overall majority. And whilst what should have happened in those circumstances is that the parties should be left free to form an alliance, or possibly there should be a runoff election. But assuming that there was no provision for a runoff election, the parties should have been left free to form their own alliance. What happened, as the evidence shows, is that Action Group and NCNC, Awolowo and Azikiwe, were in talks with a view to an alliance government. But before those talks could run their course, the British had intervened to swear Balewa in as prime minister. So again, he was vested with the advantage of incumbency, and then he was pushed to form an alliance with Azikiwe. This is what the evidence discloses. So our prime minister at independence was foisted upon us, which was in the guise of Prime Minister Balewa. That is how the NCNC Action Group alliance formed. And then again, we saw in that, or we heard in that extract, the reading, that the confidential letter and correspondence that passed between Brian Sherwood Smith. He was the last colonial governor of northern Nigeria. The confidential correspondence between Sherwood Smith and Balewa, asking for guidance as to what should the North look to secure their position after the British left. And you heard it for yourself. It was in his own words. When things break down, because the expectation was that it was going to break down, it is those who control the army and the police that will ultimately control the stage and control the show. So this is the evidence that is before us. The beauty of history is that it is like legal cases. It is never static. Evidence has to be reviewed and revisited. Our understanding of what happened can never be left in concrete. New evidence emerges, and this new evidence has emerged because a new generation of Nigerians do now have access to information and evidence, books and accounts and reports, which our fathers did not have access to. And it is that evidence that now persuades us to the view that the British did indeed hand over power to the caliphate. Moving on to the second issue, which is, are the British enemies or friends of Nigeria? My answer to this question is straightforward. You have to draw a distinction between the British people and the British government. They're not the same. The British government has its agenda, which it pursues, and part of that agenda was this situation we now have, whereby the caliphates are in control of an unbalanced and imbalanced federation. The British people are different. As you saw in the case of Mr. Harold Smith, part of whose evidence you heard in that recording, struggling to help our people understand what really happened behind the scenes, to get the truth out. Because I will share with you that I've been living in England now for the last 52 years. I came to England at the age of 7. My primary school education was in England. My secondary school education was in England. My tertiary education, I had a degree, was in England. My master's was in England. I was called to the bar in England. So I understand the British people extremely well. They are my friends. They are our friends. Yes. They are on our side. But that is not to say that their government does not pursue a different agenda. You saw it in the matter of the Iraq War, where the British people were out and protesting against that war. And yet the British government went ahead with their agenda. So let's not please confuse the British government and the British people. So the answer to the question, are the British on our side or not, is this: the British people are on the side of the good people of Nigeria. The British government, as things stand, are on the other side. It is our responsibility and our job and our challenge to get the British people to change the agenda of their government and their attitude towards our people. Those are my submissions, and I look forward to hearing counter-arguments or evidence in support. Erelu, again, I thank you very much. I hand you back.
Thank you very much indeed for your contribution. If you've just joined us, a very warm welcome to you. Let me hand over straight away to the second speaker, who would reintroduce himself and take us through the matter before this gathering. Over to you, Professor Solomon Salako. Please unmute yourself. You need to unmute. Thank you. Okay. You still haven't done it?
Yes, I've done that.
Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Erelu Tuashi, ladies and gentlemen, I've heard the last speaker, but I'm going to discuss this topic from a different perspective. I'm going to look at it from the constitutional aspect. Federal Republic of Nigeria. The problem with Nigeria is with this idea of federalism. And I need to show how we sleepwalked into federalism. I will tackle this topic in 3 parts. First, pre-independence. 2, post-independence. Then I will answer the question, are the British, I'm referring to the British government here, are they friends or enemies of the South? Now, let me start by considering pre-independence. The history of federalism in Nigeria is a tale of political chicanery, deception, and captive mind syndrome. There are 2 schools of thought on its genesis. The first school asserts that federalism was introduced into Nigeria in 1954 and retained in 1960, 63, and 1979 constitutions. The other school argues that federalism in Nigeria can be traced as far back as 1914. The latter school argues that after the amalgamation of North and South in 1914, the diversity of the country necessitated the decentralization of the country within a unitary framework. I intend to show that prior to independence, the British colonial administrators held all the aces as the leaders of business, later to be designated premiers of the three regions, were under the watchful eyes of the lieutenant governors. And that the leaders of Western and Eastern regions at the London Constitutional Conference in 1958 were outmaneuvered by the British colonial administration and sleepwalked into a political arrangement federalism, which has proved a failure, a total failure in Nigeria. Of the three premiers, Chief Obafemi Awolowo was the only committed to classical federalism. I'm picking my words very well. Classical federalism is that similar to that which obtains in the United States of America today. As he himself stated, I thought, and I'm quoting Awolowo from his autobiography, Awo, Cambridge University Press, 1960, at page 162. He said, and I quote, I thought for the immediate present and for quite a while to come that Western education should spread widely enough to enable easier contact and understanding among the entire peoples of Nigeria. The issue of what constitution was best suited to the country would then be settled by Nigerians in their own good time. When the time arrived, however, I had no doubt on which side I would be, the federalist side, end of quote. Dr. Azikiwe, the Premier of Eastern Region, was a quasi-federalist. Before the 1958 London Constitutional Conference, the Lagos Premiers Summit meeting was held at Ikorodu, 20 miles from Lagos. At this summit, the Action Group's position on federalism and NCNC's quasi-federalism were put across. Again, see the autobiography of Chief Obafemi Awolowo, Awo, at pages 185 to 187. The Minorities Commission appointed before the 1958 conference had been directed by the colonial government in Nigeria to recommend, as a last resort, the creation of not more than one region out of the existing regions. At the 1958 Constitutional Conference held in London, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, the Premier of Western Region, and Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, the Premier of Eastern Region, believed, as the British Secretary of State for Colonies had intimated, that the creation of more states should redress the balance between North and South. The Hausa-dominated Northern Region opted for confederation with power to secede. I repeat, confederation with power to secede, while the Western Region opted for classical federalism and Eastern Region for quasi-federalism. But the Secretary of State for Colonies indicated that if the demand for more states was insisted upon either before or after the election in 1959, the British government had no alternative but to postpone the election. Professor Chiwa Elias, who later became president of the International Court of Justice, reiterated that the Southerners, when they realized that more states were not going to be created, agreed to confederation with power to secede. But this was rejected by the British government. See T.O. Elias, Nigeria, the development of its laws and constitution. London, Stevens, 1967, chapter 1. Had the Southerners realized that federalism in a multi-ethnic society with a region like the North, which could override the South, could produce a winner-takes-all situation where losers become hostages to the winning faction, they would have opted for confederation with power to secede ab initio from the beginning. Unfortunately, the Southerners were outmaneuvered. That was how we were outmaneuvered. Now, let me look quickly at post-independence. The imbalance between North and South was written into the 1960 Independence Constitution and became a permanent feature of subsequent constitutions. If the captive mind syndrome led Southerners to a somnambulist approach to federalism, the ruling illusion of the British colonial administrators that constitutionalism, that is, the principle that the limitation of arbitrary powers can be embodied in an enacted constitution by rules alone, was seriously flawed on the departure of the colonial administrators. What is my conclusion? When I refer to the British in my conclusion, I'm referring to the British government. Are the British friends or enemies of the South? I've been in this country for a long time myself. The simple answer is that they are neither friends nor enemies. States, according to Winston Churchill, do not have friends. They have interests, and British interests are inimical to the interests of the Yoruba or the Southerners as a whole. Anthony Enaro, a Southerner, was extradited from the UK to face treasonable felony trial in Nigeria. But the United Kingdom refused to extradite Yakubu Gowon, a Northerner, to face his accusers in Nigeria. That is my humble submission. Thanks for listening to me.
Thank you very much indeed, Professor Solomon Kundayo Salako. If you've just joined us, a very warm welcome, especially those who have joined the Zoom area. My next speaker is somebody who one would say is probably sitting in the position of the government of a country known as Nigeria, as protocol-wise ambassadors remains ambassador. He's a career ambassador. Once upon a time, he was a head of information in United Kingdom. Thank you very much indeed for all you did those years. Permit me, therefore, to introduce, I must do this correctly so that it's protocol-wise what it should be. He's known as His Excellency. That's the proper title, His Excellency, Dr. Grants Ehiebuche. I do hope I've pronounced the surname well. Your Excellency, a very warm welcome to you. At the end of your submission, I will add a little bit more of your introduction. May I invite you, Your Excellency, to deliver your contribution within the next 20 minutes. Over to you.
Thank you very much. The watchful, the twice past mayor of the London Borough of Wandsworth, Honorable Alderman Erelu Law.
We have a bit of work. Are you back with us, Excellency? Right. I think we've lost him for a moment. Let's see if we can get him back. Are you back with us? Your Excellency, may I suggest you do not use earpiece or in order to be able to communicate effectively? Hello? He's left, and we'll wait and see if we can bring him back in. I do not want to invite any comments at this junction. If I wait for a couple of minutes and he doesn't rejoin us, I may have to bring in Professor Olutayo Adeshina. Let's give His Excellency Dr. Grant Eyobuche a few moments to rejoin us. Now, whilst he's away, let me add more about who he is. He's a diplomat par excellence, an immediate past.
I'm back.
Very warm welcome back. May I suggest you don't use earpiece so that we can hear you clearly? Hello? He's an accomplished career diplomat and immediate past representative of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to the Democratic Republic of Congo. Let me hope that he's able to rejoin us. And whilst we are still waiting for him, I may have to bring in Professor Olutayo Adeshina, a professor of history from the University of Ibadan, Nigeria. His main focus is going to be on the importance of history. We're having problems with His Excellency, Ambassador Dr. Grant Eyobuche. Let me bring in Professor Olutayo. Professor Olutayo, warm welcome to you. May I invite you to deliver your contribution for this evening. Professor, are you with us? I did see him earlier on. Hello, Professor.
Hello.
Right. Good evening and warm welcome. Over to you.
Okay. Good evening, Ma. How are you, Ma?
I'm fine, Ishe. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to be here this evening. I thank Evile Tuwashe for considering me worthy to also participate in this program. I thank those who have presented those clinically important piece, and we are assured of the continuity of historical sources for our children to learn from. But one problem I have with the way we write history or the way we learn history is the fact that the present generation is no longer interested in history of any sort. This is because, as far as they are concerned, history is not quite useful. It's not useful because it's not an avenue to make money. It's not an avenue to be a professional, so to speak. But we also tell people that there are some subjects that are service subjects. History is a service subject. And when you ask what history is used for, people tell you, oh, is it not about the rise and fall of empires? Or we say, well, history is not about the rise and fall of empires. It is also not about the succession of kings, one after another. The proper way to understand history now is that history is the totality of human experience. You talk about politics, you talk about livelihood, you talk about religion, you talk about diplomacy. These are things that constitute what history is all about. So it is important that we begin to ensure that our children begin to see the importance of history in our existence. The way Nigeria is configured now has a lot to do with our past histories. But people don't think that history has anything to do with what is happening in Nigeria, but it does. Is history dead and buried? Is it useful? Does it have any utility value? History is not gone. History is here with us. And it will always be with us for a long time. Whatever we think about, however we relate with people, domination, dominance, all these are legacies of historical relationships. When you talk about domination in Nigeria, there is no way you won't talk about Lord Lugard. Because Lugard, in creating Nigeria, created Nigeria along separatist lines. And one of the reasons why there is dominant elements, why there are dominant elements in this country, is because they actually divided the country into martial groups, peaceful groups, people who are good for the army, people who are good for the police, people who are good for the civil service. Our chicken has now come home to roost today because we have continued to exist along those lines. The domination of the military forces, of the security forces today, is a legacy of colonialism. The issue of restructuring that we are clamoring for today is a legacy of colonialism. And is it going to be easy to restructure Nigeria? The answer blows in the wind, because we also have to understand the issue of privileges. In every society, there are privileged groups. And when you are vested and invested with certain privileges, it is always very difficult to give up those privileges. And for as long as people are not ready to give up those privileges, they are not ready to negotiate away those privileges, and we are interested in restructuring, then there is a problem. It is because you have the irresistible force and the immovable force. Now, what is happening in Nigeria is that there is an irresistible force coming, and there is also an immovable force that doesn't want to move. So how do we begin to also understand how to ensure that this country does not disintegrate on the basis of an ossified structure? Those who have privileges have become ossified structures. And if we are also now going to get out of this problem, we've got to understand how to use history to tell them that this is not your father's land. It is our father's land. You know, when Oyo Empire had existed for 600 years, that was when the Sokoto Caliphate came into existence. And we've got to make them understand that the 600 years that the Oyo Empire had existed in this country is not the mate of a caliphate that came into existence in 1812. So at any point in time, history must be used to confront people who assumed that they are the dominant elements within the society. Now you have traditional rulers, two people becoming co-chairmen of traditional rulers in this country. But no, there is a hierarchy. There are people within this country who had been leaders of vast empires before the Sokoto Caliphate came into existence. The history of Oyo Empire will tell you that it went as far as Togo and Ghana in modern West Africa. So what are we using our history to explain? What do we know about history? So I would commend each and every one of us to rededicate our lives the way Dele Ogun had done to the search for the truth. History is not only about storytelling, it is also about interpretation. So what are we interpreting? It is very important for us now that as the generation that is in the eye of the storm, we call our children and begin to tell them our history as a powerful weapon that will liberate our lands. One advantage that some other groups, I won't bother to mention the groups that they have, is that they sit down their children and tell them histories and say, 10 years ago, they did this to us. You must make sure you avenge. But I particularly remember an Arab proverb. It's safe to use that one because they are not part of us. Although you have Shuwa Arabs in northern Nigeria, but the Arabs themselves will tell you, he who forgets is lost, and he who forgives is doomed. Mm-hmm. So when you have intergroup relations and you relate with such people, then you understand what that means. And so as we are gradually moving on in this century, we must know our friends, we must know our neighbors, we must know our enemies. Therein lies our strength. So it is not enough for us to learn the history of our people alone. You must also learn the history of other people so as to know how to deal with issues as they come and how to relate them as issues come. And that is why Sun Tzu, in the Art of War, said, know thyself, know thine enemy. It is very important. That is the higher duty of history. understand your people, understand your friends, understand your enemies, and therein lies our safety and security. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Professor Lutayo, talking about knowing friends and knowing enemies. Once upon a time, Queen Elizabeth II said, "I cannot lead you into battle. I do not give you laws or administer justice. But what I can do, I can give my heart and my devotion to this old Ireland and to all the peoples of our brotherhood of nations." Brotherhood of nations. The Queen said she can't lead anyone to battle. She doesn't give us laws. She doesn't administer justice. Most interesting. Let me see if we can bring back His Excellency Ambassador Dr. Grant Yobuche. Are you back with us, Your Excellency? Are you back with us? Hello, are you back with us? You may need to unmute yourself. Are you back with us?
Yes, ma'am, I'm back on the story about the chapter in Nigeria. That is
Okay.
exactly what we are talking about. That
Please proceed
60
now. Thank
years
you.
more after independence and colonialism, are we still? Hello?
We are here with you. Please proceed. Thank you.
We can hear you, sir.
Frozen again, I think. It's on the screen, but this network is frozen. Unfortunately, the network is the problem. Let me invite comments from those who are in the Zoom area whilst we are waiting to see if the network will be kind to us. Right. Let me invite comments. If there's anyone who wishes to share thoughts on what has been heard, you may raise your hand and I will invite you to speak. Right, we've got Jemima Danjuma. Over to you, Jemima.
Hi, good evening, honorable ladies and gentlemen in this forum. I thank you, God, and I am of a privilege to be here this evening. And to me, it's much more surprising the amount of the history I listened from the audio, and also the gentleman who spoke, the second gentleman who spoke, and the last. Well, as the Hausa lady, and I found everything very, 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 very backward. Backward in the sense of, in this 20th century, we are still talking about 1960 history. We are still contemplating on 1960 history. Listen, whoever got that power at that time, Tafawa Balewa and who is who, they are no longer there. They are no longer there. Now, we need to move forward. We need to move forward.
Can I interrupt you? Pastor Olabi, can you please exit the Zoom area or mute yourself? Thank you. Over to you again, Jemima.
Yeah, we need to move forward. I think you see, because
how can you move forward? You're stuck.
Hello?
I'm still with you.
Okay, then, because me and you met in the 80s concerning this issue when you formed a group called Friend of Nigeria. The Friend of Nigeria. And a lot of people were there with us, even people from Cameroon and Ghana. We've been discussing this issue. Listen, I like Fidel Castro of Cuba. Cuba. I always read that man actually history, how he became a militant and took over his country from the hands of America and done a good job on it, And I think in Nigeria, we shouldn't be contemplating on colonial, Tafawa Balewa, all those people are gone. Lord Lugard is gone. Now we got to move forward. Forward, I'm saying a lot of people want to leave the federation. Please, if you want to leave the federation, leave the federation. If we cannot be together, there is no point of being together. That's what I believe. If I cannot live with you, there is no point I will sit down with you, So that's another thing. Why I call Fidel Castro. Castro, look at the situation in his own country and develop his own ideology for his people. And it works. It worked for him at that time.
On that note, Jemima, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I think we've got His Excellency back. I shall come back to you later on. Your Excellency, over to you. Are we lucky with the network now? Hello, Your Excellency.
Yes, please.
Please, over to you.
Back. Yes, I'm back. I don't know whether. Hello?
You may proceed.
I am back.
Okay, fine. Please share your thoughts with us.
Okay. Please, I'm very, very sorry about the disruptions by the Nigerian network, Wahala, as usual. It's most delightful to be invited to be part of this discussion today. And well, since I have lost most of my time, let me go straight and make a submission. My submission is based on the fact that I am well exposed to the British system where I have served for a period of not less than 7 years when I was much younger officer. Hello? Am I being heard?
Yes, I can hear you well. Apologies for the interruption.
Okay.
Please exit the Zoom area.
Hello?
Over to you now. Thank you.
Hello?
We can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay. So I want to go straight. I want to rely on the constitutional framework that has been well espoused by Professor Solomon to go straight to the issue of whether pre-colonial independence created structural imbalance in Nigeria. And of course, the question is yes, it did create, because by the amalgamation of the Northern Protectorate with the Southern Protectorate, the Northern Protectorate was made preponderant. And that preponderance was in terms of geographical area, population, and then, of course, the power that had population if you are in a democracy. But then, having said that, I also want to say that the structure and system country, including Canada, India, to some extent Australia, and also America experienced colonial connection. All these countries were
We've lost him again. I think we have to give up,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
We will need to give up. Let me go straight to Dr. Gladys Ngozika. Over to you. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. And it's a good opportunity to join you guys in talking because I still believe there's hope in Nigeria despite all our differences. I must thank you, Erunle Tiwasi, for organizing this. This is the second program of yours I'm listening, and I find it interesting. I also thank the first two speakers who went to great lengths in order to research and give us good history. Now, I want to be short in my word because I know some people also want to talk. And I'm of the opinion that history is very important because it's when we learn history that we know our mistakes and the past mistakes of our elders. And then we seek peace and we seek healing of the communities, then we can move forward. Some of us are here in Britain, and in secondary school, they are still teaching them history about the great wars of United Kingdom and history of King Henry VIII and Queen Victoria and all those history. Then Nigeria is only 60 years old, and then somebody or some school of thought will think that it is not good to learn history. That is bad. When we learn history, we then make determinations. I must please call the attention of the first two speakers. There is a very important aspect of Nigerian history that they omitted, and that is the history of the civilian war or the civil war, pardon me. It is very important because Chief Awolowo and also Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, they were all still there. I'm not saying it out of any bitterness, but I'm also saying it in the sense that we're talking about Britain and the role of Britain in being a friend of Nigeria and today's Nigeria. We all knew that the Prime Minister of Britain at that time was Harold Wilson, and he had this order that he gave that Nigerians fighting amongst themselves should suddenly use hunger as a weapon of warfare in order to destroy the Southeast. Well, I happen to be from the Southeast. And like I said, I'm not talking on the strength of bitterness, but I'm talking on the sense that we don't forget this part of the history. Because when we recognize it and then seek an opportunity that will come to the round table and ask for peaceful settlement of all the anger or all the differences between our different ethnic groups. Nigeria has 200 ethnic groups. I schooled in Federal Government Girls College, Boko. I have a lot of Yoruba friends, and Fulani friends, Hausa friends, Idoma, and Cross River. So I'm a nationalist Nigeria. And it hurts my heart that I'm not able to go to Kaduna or to Maiduguri or to all my other friends in Sokoto where I used to visit before. I want a Nigeria that is complete, but not a Nigeria that is half-baked. And then when we're talking about the history, a part of our history is omitted. So what I'll encourage us, please, going forward is to remember, Igbo nation has been in existence and was recorded in Harvard history as far back as 1645. Now, the Berlin Conference that divided Africa into colonies by which Britain took Nigeria was done in 1844 to 1885. Even though I'm a medical doctor and a consult and an orthopedic doctor, I'm also a lawyer trained educationist. I have LLB from Coventry University and LLM from University of Warwick. And why I did these programs is because of my desire to see that there is international law and development in Nigeria. And I'm talking on that standpoint of a nationalist to make all of us appreciate that the Nigeria we have today is not working. Any person that has given the Fulanis, pardon me, please, the North, the power to say you can rule the whole of Nigeria, did not do us any good. And we have to call British government to order. Because you see, the masses of British populace, they are not the same as British states. And they feel upset that many Nigerians they know are their friends. We do jollof rice, we do a lot of food and moi when there's ethnic celebrity things. But then our country is not at peace. And they are asking questions. So if at the end of this gathering or this talk, and we can find a way to bring awareness to the British government in order to know that the harm they cause to Nigeria is not good. And this awareness should also go and overlap to the British population so that they will appreciate that Nigerians, ordinary Nigerians, the market woman in Ijebu, the market woman in Ilorin, the market woman in Aba, the market woman in Maiduguri and Sokoto, that they are suffering at the expense of Britain enjoying a lot of trade relationships with Nigeria. The other 2 points I want to bring this out is that Britain has come out of Brexit, out of Europe, and Britain needs Nigeria to trade. And the Nigerian population is about 200 million. And out of 200 million, 70% are youth. So we are in a higher bargaining position now. And we have Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala as the Director General of WTO. So we are really at a place of disadvantage. They have a great advantage to make British government understand that the way they skewed Nigeria by tilting it so that power is remaining in the north is causing a lot of death. And when the British populace start shouting and crying out that look at what their government has led them to do, and that is then when we will get something changed. But if we're just leaving it in a way to go and talk only to the MPs without the British populace knowing what is happening and how the decisions of the government is affecting the ordinary Nigerians, we are not going anywhere. Harold Wilson made a decision, and because of hunger, 3 million children in the Southeast died. Can you imagine a situation where children in England can be denied of their food? So we are not just in a situation to talk only about disadvantage in one set. So let us talk about all the effects of British decisions in the Nigerian circumstance. And that is what is affecting us. And when we address it, we can all move forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Gladys Ngozika. Over to you, Adekunle Alara.
Hello, good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes. Good evening.
I'm grateful to God for giving me this opportunity to be in the midst of these great men and women. I think when I got the invitation for this Zoom meeting, Zoom conference, I was glad, and I left so many things to attend. I just want to quickly say, so that I don't take your time, that the birth and the growth of Nigeria is a big topic. And when we look at the birth of Nigeria, the tripods, the three eminent men that really stood together to probably put together Nigeria after independence. The arrangement then was something of what transpires in United Kingdom now. The nations that made up that polity, as at that time, they were semi-autonomous of a kind. And it brought about healthy rivalry, also development. However, as time goes by, several events happened, such as the war in the West, the crisis in the West, 1963, 1979, the election in which it was said the better candidate didn't need to win the election. Yeah, definitely the election was that way, but everyone says it that the better candidate didn't win that election. The 1983 military interregnum, which brought about where we are now, led by President Buhari. Also, the 1985 IBB intervention, which is called those people institutionalized corruption. Also, coming to 1992, the Great Injustice, where a worldly acclaimed free and fairest election was annulled. The acclaimed winner murdered without repercussion for whoever has done what. So I, as a person, I'm not a doctor, neither am I a professor, but I have 2 degrees, I have 2 masters, and I have several other trainings. And I've lived and worked in the north, northern part of Nigeria, especially I worked in Maiduguri, and I lived there for a while. I've also been to Aba in the east, and I really did want Nigeria to be together. From the bottom of my conscience, I love that great country. I love the big country. I love the multipolar, multi-ethnic, multilinguistic country. However, all attempts made by eminent people to make Nigeria, to make the project work, has all fallen aside. No one has been able to do it. So I do tell people, it is not about whether you are Hausa, you are Yoruba, or you are Fulani, or you are Igbo, or Nupe. No. It is the system. That system, if you bring an angel, any angel cannot work that system successfully because the system is skewed negatively and it is lopsided. So if anything good has to come out from it, I strongly believe in genuine restructuring of that country. If we begin to paper on things and say, let's go along the way it is going, we are just postponing the evil day. Now, because of the people that have started to say, oh, don't worry about restructuring, even Yoruba man, Obasanjo, was there, and I joined other people clamoring for restructuring them. But he thought by merely appointing Yoruba, Igbo, and Hausa into positions to balance things, as against what Buhari is doing now, nepotistic, appointments, he thought that will make things fine. No, he was putting the time bomb under the carpet, because when somebody else gets there, because there was no institutionalized constitution.
30 seconds more, please.
Okay, so where we are today now, because people have shouted down restructuring as an option, it has now brought up issue of self-determination. This is a fundamental right for anybody to say they want to self-determine themselves. No one can say, oh, you must be with me even in a marriage. So people that make peaceful change, let me just round up. People that make peaceful change impossible automatically makes violent change inevitable. So we need to look at it from that angle. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. And permit me to remind every one of us that once upon a time, the British left you in Nigeria with Westminster parliamentary system of government. And now you have got American presidential system of government. Remember that. The British left us, Westminster parliamentary system of government. And you, whichever way you decided, you have ended up with American presidential system of government. So are you still British or you are now American? Let me go straight on to Aṣojú Ọba Henry Olatujoye.
Thank you, Erelu Tuashe. I'm most glad to be on this platform. I'm speaking to you right away now. I'm in Delta State, Nigeria. I'm from Ondo State. Without wasting time, I've listened to all the speakers. I want to thank Jemima. I want to thank Dr. Ngozi. I want to thank Dele Ogu, and all the rest. All what we are saying today, it looks to me as academic effort. Academic effort. It is very clear that when the foundation is faulty, there's nothing the builder could do. We have all agreed on this platform that the foundation of Nigeria is faulty. And who made it faulty? It is the British state, not the British people. Now, is it not better that when the British state to let them see in history what they have planted in what they call Nigeria, and make them to realize and take and make effort to bring back their mistakes. If we go, either you say we are presidential or we are parliamentary system, it will not still work. If you bring authoritarian to Nigeria, it will cause war. I want to suggest to the House, especially to our scholars, to begin to look for ways and what we can do to ensure that we make Britain as a country to see the mistakes of their past and make a way out of it to advise Nigerian government. Yeah, it is true. Remember in those days when we were young, if you go to if you want to enlist into the Nigerian army as a Yoruba person, your family, your parents, your extended family, they will go into prayer and fasting to discourage you. The Hausa Fulani and the Northern Federation, they were all being enlisted because we see them as weak and they are not intelligent. Yes, I agree with one of the speakers who says that Nigeria was formed along three lines. Those who are good for administration, and those who are good for trade, and those who are good for to be enlisted into power, police, and all the rest. All those efforts has come to pass. What do we do now to start to critically engage? Lastly, to critically engage the people that cause the problem for them to have a rethink in the Commonwealth of Nations. Thank you, Irelu.
Thank you very much indeed. Somebody call Omolorun and Alagba Oyalowo. Last name I don't know. Please mute yourself. I'll be very grateful if you can. Omolorun, followed by Chief Anthony Ubani. Omolorun is the name I have for the next person. In the absence of that person, may I invite Vincent Anthony Ubani to please share his thoughts.
Good evening. I know some people are already in the morning. We are here in Nigeria. Good evening, Lagos. My name is Honorable Vincent Anthony Ubani, the Director General of the Nigerian Youth Headquarters. I want to appreciate every speaker that has contributed to this program today, and also the host. I really appreciate all the opportunity you've given to us to learn, to understand what we may not even fully be in the picture, because we are the ones that was born after the war. Yes, but at the same time, we are the victim that is passing through the pains of the not working system of government that we have in our country today, Nigeria. Let me not take our time. I just want to make my own input in line with the program, because people has been contributing a lot of input, but I think I want to head towards is the British our friends, because that is the area I'm more interested with. British Council or British government cannot be our friend. The reasons is that irrespective of all what has happened in the past, which, yes, some of us, we don't want to talk about the past again. We are even talking about the present. Because the past, there is a lot of histories. When everybody start giving their history, we don't know the one to even take. So we want to focus on the current situation. I have engaged the British Council, and I have asked them a lot of questions based on what is happening in our country, based on the high rate of poverty and hardship our people are passing through. I want to understand from them personally. I was in their British Council in Abuja. The David Smith, that is the head of the communication, personally attended to me and my team that went for this meeting. We asked, what is actually the role of British in Nigeria? What is the agenda in Nigeria? I was meant to understand by them that the British, their top priority in Nigeria is to eliminate poverty and uplift Nigeria out of poverty. These are the two keywords they use for me. And in as much I understand very well that the high rate of poverty in Nigeria is alarming, and the British government said their primary assignment is to eliminate poverty. What is the British government doing to eliminate poverty in Nigeria? And that is the area everyone should be thinking of or should be focusing on. The British government primary assignment in Nigeria, irrespective of any other thing, is to eliminate poverty and to uplift Nigeria out of poverty. And Nigeria is suffering in a high rate of poverty and hardship. Does it mean that the British government is not actually doing their primary assignment in Nigeria? Then what is actually the British government doing in Nigeria? To me, the British government is making Nigeria, and it's okay with the condition the Nigeria is. The major problem we are facing in Nigeria, every problem lies in the hands of the British government. And I want to support the last speaker who said, it is time the British government is being called to book to let them know the mistake and all errors they have been doing and let them be able to come and correct it because it is in their hand. I keep telling them they are like the mother of Nigeria. They give birth to Nigeria. The British government has to do something to end this problem we find ourselves into in Nigeria.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chief Ubani. And whilst you were sharing your thoughts, I have a message for someone who says, we need to get a British Member of Parliament to table a motion for the abrogation of the Act of Amalgamation of Nigeria 1914. I repeat, abrogation of the Act of Amalgamation of Nigeria 1914. It's very clear that the British the British government, shall I say, being held responsible for the ongoing chaotic nature of the country known as the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Over to you, Olaosebikon Emmanuel. You are next. Olaosebikon Emmanuel, you've raised your hand. And I can see that Dr. Shalao has raised his hand.
Hello?
Yes, over to you. Olaosebikon Emmanuel. Yes, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. I appreciate every one of you. And I really want to appreciate your efforts.
I do apologize. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You need to either remove your earpiece so you can actually speak directly.
Can you hear me, ma?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Can you hear me? Yeah, so what I'm trying to pass across is this. I want to appreciate all the speakers, and I want to be very brief so that we will not take our time. The point of that is of history. I want to teach our freedom back. At the same time, after the way they left Nigeria.
I'm afraid it's not good at all. I'm very sorry. Very, very sorry. It's just isn't.
Hello, ma. Hello.
Okay,
Hello.
try for the next 2 minutes. Let's see.
Hello, ma.
Now it's better now. If you can stay that way, it's better now. Over to
okay,
you now.
ma. Okay, ma. So what I'm trying to pass across is, as a student of history, the British, some people say they came to Nigeria because they want to eradicate poverty. I have a different opinion. As a student of political science from the University of Ilorin, we were made to understand that the British just saw Nigeria as a land of Eldorado. They only came just to explore us. They only came because they believe we have more things they don't have in their country then. And at the end of the day, they felt managing Nigeria would be easy for them through amalgamation. And that was what led to the amalgamation of 1914. And I see that as a marriage of inconvenience. Yes, we may believe we are strong in diversity, but this thing called Nigeria is not just working. It's not working at all. It's not working at all in the sense that we don't trust ourselves. I'm not from the southeast, but I've had this. I've had people say it times the number that cannot trust. They cannot trust the southeast to be president because they are scared that the southeast may disengage the country, they may leave Nigeria. And I say this: why the suspicion? If you are treating people who have no reason to say they want to go, they will have reason to say they will not have any reason they want to go. Like every one of us can strive now. We have our China in the southeast. I call the southeasterner the Nigerian Chinese because most of the fibers we use and most of the clothes and shoes, so many things that we get from outside the country, they made it in the southeast. So if you believe you want us to be together, the South believe they hold the voice. Do you believe that the education up, that the brain? If you want us to be together, we need to sit and restructure the country. You want us to live together. It can't work. And if they don't restructure Nigeria, we are sitting on a can of fire powder. It's going to blow one day, and the country may explode.
On that point, please, on that point, I want to say thank you very much indeed. I want to move to Dr. Sholaoni. Over to you. May I apologize?
Thank you, ma'am.
Jemima Danjuma, I interrupted you, but after Dr. Sholaoni, I will bring you in. So Jemima Danjuma next. Over to you, Dr. Sholaoni. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you very much. I'm just a little bit disappointed that even though we've been independent for 60 years, we still think that we should heap all the blame on the British. It is like a 60-year-old man saying that I'm going to blame my parents for what is happening to me now at the age of 60. I think we need to stop. It's like the Yoruba say, it's somebody who doesn't want to do anything, finds an excuse for whatever it is. Now, when the British left, it doesn't matter, what preference they had, they left us to it. The fact that we didn't do a good job of it doesn't mean that we should continue to blame them because of the structure. Because at the end of the day, we still managed to hive off the Midwest from Western region. That wasn't the British. And we have now tried two systems of government. We tried the parliamentary system, we failed. We have now tried the presidential system and we are failing. We cannot blame anybody else. It is now just ridiculous for us at this stage to be blaming the British for anything. Regardless of what they did to us, they left us to it, and we should have been able to do something. Even we couldn't change the name of Nigeria to anything else. We have been running our own country for the last 60 years, and we've made a mess of it. And I think the first thing we need to accept is that we've been lousy at it. And whether it's the structure that is the problem or it's the people that is the problem, we need to own up. We need to own up, because if we don't own up, we can't move forward. I'm not saying that you shouldn't talk about history, After all, I've written 2 books on ancient Yoruba. So I'm not saying you shouldn't look at history, but what I'm disappointed at is that we're still blaming the people who gave us I mean, it's a long time ago. It's a
Thank
long
you.
time ago.
Thank
And
you.
we should have by now do something. And finally, anybody who's been on this forum, who's listened to me will know that as far as I'm concerned, Nigeria has to dissolve. The country is not working. We've tried 2 systems, well, actually 3 systems of government: parliamentary, military, and presidential, and none of it has worked. And it is time for us to go our separate ways. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Oni. The only thing that we all need to understand is that the instrument of governance, known as the Constitution, has no exit clause. Each time the East or the West or the North or South, whatever you call them in Nigeria, they say, oh, we want to exit. They say, unity is non-negotiable. Unity is non-negotiable. While saying that, may I?
Can I respond to that?
No, it's okay. It's
Briefly.
all right.
Okay. Now,
Hold on a
actually,
second.
it doesn't very much matter what the Constitution says. If
Yes.
the Yorubas say they want to live, they're entitled to live. They have the right to live. Nobody has the right.
Can I stop you there?
Yes.
Everybody has the right to exercise that choice to be free. But you have all your Yoruba wants to live. All your Yoruba governors are signed into the Federal Republic.
Oh,
your Senate. I don't want to engage in dialogue, please.
No, I was just going to say that it doesn't really matter what the governors say.
Can I stop you there? I'm sorry. You are signed into a democratic system, and you have to learn to communicate with yourself to sort yourself out. I'm going to stop you there. Let me put my question that I would like Professor Salako to answer, which is very important. So far, we've received evidence. One says the British government enemy, another one says British government friends. The most important thing is this. Please tell me, why on earth do Nigerians believe that the British has responsibility to dissolve them? Why on earth do I continue to hear Nigerians talking about British coming to dissolve them? I'll come back to that for the answer. Let me bring in Jamaima Danjuma. My question, Professor, why on earth are Nigerians who are part of an independent country, why do they continue to come to Britain? To come and ask Britain to come and dissolve them? Why on earth? What is their dissolution got to do with the British government or the British people? Now, Jemima, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. You know, after I was saying, I like the last speaker, Dr. Oshola. That's what I am trying to say. Stop blaming Britain. You know what? They have moved. They have left us. So let us create our own system. If we want to be together, remain together. If we don't want to be together, dissolve it. I am Hausa, and I will tell you, none of those people that are leading from the north that ever become leader of Nigeria from the north is Hausa. Hausa is a language used for communication. But we, the indigenous of Hausa, we have is our own language. But none of us never even hold secretarial position in the government of Nigeria. But you see, we are blamed. Sometimes we are blamed stealing money. Sometimes we are blamed stealing powers, power in Nigeria, which we never, Hausa
I'm
International.
going to stop with Judge Jemima in a minute sharp, because
Yes.
I do need to bring other people in. Have you
Yes.
had your last say on this matter?
Yeah, it's my last say is, if we want to create a system that is going to work for us, let's go for it under the discussion. But if we
Okay.
want to be separated, please let's do it. It's taking too long. We've been discussing on this for a long time. And I am somebody doesn't waste my time. You understand on this is such an issue. Either you are in or you are out. That's what I believe.
Okay. Thank you very much indeed. I think that's the crux of the matter. I'm hearing from this gathering that whether the British are enemies or they are friends, the most important thing is just the country isn't working. The project is not fit for purpose. Now, Professor Salako, please tell me, has the British government got any role to play in the dissolution of Nigeria?
The short answer is no, but I will expatiate on that. I think the problem with Nigerians is that they have a rather tenuous grasp. Let me put it that way. A rather tenuous grasp of the right to self-determination. I've had quite a lot of things here, legitimacy. If you want to exercise your right to self-determination, what about legitimacy? There are two aspects of the right to self-determination. The first one is the external right to self-determination, and the other is the internal right to self-determination. The external right to self-determination is extinguished on independence, but the internal right to self-determination subsists. At any time, we can exercise the internal right to self-determination. Let me explain further. In Nigeria, there are nations within the states. We, the Yoruba, are a nation. The Igbo, a nation. Hausa Fulani, a nation. There are other groups there. So we have that right to internal self-determination, which is protected by international law. In fact, the right to self-determination is part of customary international law. So we don't need to appeal to the British to assert that right in international law. And it's the same right that Nicola Sturgeon is trying to assert here. There are 4 nations in the United Kingdom: England, Wales, Northern Ireland, Scotland. The state is the United Nations. There are 4 nations within that. International law recognizes nations within a state. See Bradley's Laws of International Law, recently edited by Andrew Chapman. So that is what immediately you mention right to self-determination, they feel that, well, they must bring out the army and you are committing treason. It's apparent nonsense.
Professor, can I focus you? So the answer is, please get on with your business in Nigeria and dissolve yourself.
Yes.
Your dissolution is got nothing to do with Britain. Leave Britain out of this. I want to borrow from what Dr. Oni said. Stop blaming Britain. Get on with dissolving your country yourself. Britain gave you independence unless you can provide evidence, a documentary evidence, which suggests that when Britain gave you independence, like Britain gave many independence, that there is a clause which says, if you get into trouble and you don't know how to organize yourself anymore, come back or we come and help you. I personally find it disgraceful. See people all over England, in particular, Britain, come and help us, come and help us, come and help us. On that note, Elder Adelobi, what is the solution of Nigeria got to do with Britain?
Thank you for that question, Erilu. The answer is actually quite straightforward, and it arises from the comments of Jemima Danjuma and Dr. Oni, who both claimed that the British left and history is irrelevant. We got independence in 1960. But you see, independence which you are given is very different from independence which you win. When you're given independence, is granted to you, it is the grantor that sets the terms, including the date of your so-called independence. The head of the British Army.
I'm going to interrupt you because I want straightforward answer here. There are many people, please hold on, who were slaves and they got independent, they were freed. I just want a direct layman's answer. What has this dissolution of Nigeria got to do with Britain?
I have an answer here.
Bear with me.
No, please mute yourself. Please, Elder, I beg you.
Yes, I'm going to answer directly. The dissolution is not in Britain's hands. It's in the hands of our people. But those who claim that we were granted independence in 1960 are delusional and misleading themselves. The head of the Nigerian army, as at 1964, was a Briton. So when exactly did we gain independence? Britain won the Biafra War for the federal side. So when exactly did we gain independence? But I'll speak more later. You may want to bring other people.
Thank you very much. You've actually got me to the point I need to be. You seem to be suggesting that, please don't interrupt. You seem to be suggesting that Nigeria has never been given independence. That's what you're saying.
Nigeria has not won independence. It was granted something. It is granted something called independence, but you're not free until you freed yourself.
Thank you very much indeed. And in a layman's term, it means get on with your business and behave like free people. Now, let me go straight to the next speaker, please. AJO iPhone. AJO
Thank you.
iPhone.
Yes, good evening. Thank you very much. That's Austin Otter. That's on my iPhone. Thank you. Well, it seems at the time I raised my hands, there were some issues I wanted to address, but they seem to have been addressed. So I will just say very briefly that the idea that history is not relevant to us is us actually shooting ourselves in the foot. This idea that Nigeria the policy of not having history in schools is ridiculous. And like the doctor pointed out, countries, nation states, ensure that their generations, the younger generations, learn about their history, learn about the ethos that put them together in the first place. That's how you become a nation state. You don't pretend to forget what has happened and then say you're moving forward. Does not make any sense, with respect. So our history is in on that one. It's something that has also to be studied, including the invasion of the East, the so-called Biafran. It wasn't a war; it was an invasion. The Biafran invasion is being swept under the carpet. Many of us are religious. We read the Bible, we read the Quran. We notice that in those stories, they don't anyway, as far as the Bible is concerned, that's what I know. They don't embellish the stories. They allow human life to play out. And so here, we have people who have done a lot of things wrong and a lot of things right. We need to know the truth. Because the truth that you know that will set you free. So any idea that we should not study history or we should forget about it is way over the bar. We are not going.
Thank you very much indeed.
Justice and blood in the land that needs to be.
Thank you very much.
Pacified.
Thank you. I'm trying to get away from too many talks. Okay. I hope that this session will do one thing: make it clear to the people of Nigeria that Britain has got no business with your right to self-determination. Get on with it. Mm-hmm. On that note, I'm going to come back to you, Professor Salako, as well as Elder Delu, on this subject of the constitutional force majeure served on the Nigerian government on the 16th of December due to lapse on the 16th of March. Constitutional force majeure. Now, Alagbadele, you are going to be the person to explain that. Having established here, please get on with dissolving yourself. Get on with it. Leave Britain out of this. Britain, you didn't win independence. You've been given one. Now, thank you. Please, I want to also borrow the leaf from the page of Dr. Oni. Please, stop this nonsense. 60 years old, get on with your business. Stop coming to Britain. Get on with your work and sort yourself out. Let me go straight on to the next speaker. Now, let's go straight to, I think there's somebody else here. I showed you, you have already spoken before. Is there anybody else? I showed you keep it brief, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Ma. I want to let our scholars know on this platform that the instrument of governance is as laid down by the British government today. For instance, all the Francophone countries around West Africa, they had their economy tied to the French government up to today. Also, all the Anglophone countries in West Africa still had their economy tied to the British authority. So Britain has a role to play in Nigerian situation. We need to correct that instrument of
on that note, I disagree with you. 1999 Constitution has got nothing to do with Britain. No. 1999 Constitution. The Nigerians of this world, where were you when Abdul Salam handed over that Constitution to you?
Can I just for a second?
Please, no. No, thank you. I want to go to the next person. Please, I will remove you from the room. I'm going to remove you. The lady who is noisy. Please exit. Please exit.
Run away.
There's a noisy lady in the background. Please exit. I'm going to mute everybody. I think it's so disrespectful to come onto a program.
Hello. Run away with the woman. Right.
I cannot understand this. Aduke Fantastic Lorries seems to have been the source of the noise. Let me go straight on. You will need to unmute yourself when I invite you to speak. I want to go back to the point. Please exit the Zoom area if you have business to do. I beg of you.
Did you say I should unmute myself?
No, please mute yourself back. The noise is coming from your area. Thank you. Right, let me go straight on. Please leave Britain out of this nonsense. Get on with your self-determination rights. That's the point. Oh, somebody just told me, it's got something to do with Britain. 1999 Constitution that Abdul Salam gave to you. Were you asleep? Were you asleep when Abdul Salam gave you the Constitution? He says, we the people. Britain didn't give you that Constitution. It was given to you under the military government. And Britain is not British, is not military government. No. Let's go straight on to the next person. Dr. Ngozika, over to you.
I beg to disagree with you that the British government is 100% innocent about what happens.
Correction,
You
no,
understand?
sorry, no such statement was made.
Okay, thank you. My understanding and what I believe I want to put across is the state interest of a government is for the government. It's like people playing in a football match. The jersey you are wearing is what you defend. British government has a right to defend the interests of United Kingdom. I'm a British Nigerian. And in every negotiation they are making, they are defending the interests of United Kingdom. But what I'm saying is that those decisions they have taken is hurting Nigerian population and Nigerian
On that note,
government.
I want to stop you there because you've had a big, sorry, you have had a big chunk before.
Okay, thank you.
I do thank you. Let me go to, there's somebody, Ati Johnson, who hasn't said a word today. Over to you. Hello.
Thank you. Hello, thank you, Relu. Are you hearing me?
Yes, yes, yes.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy you said Nigeria should make dissolving the country their business. British government is not involved in Nigeria right now. And moreover, we haven't got any constitution. You said Abdul Salam gave us a 1999 constitution. To form a constitution, we have to have we the people of that country. We did not get involved in writing that constitution. Nigerians don't get involved with it. They just sat down, wrote a governing paper, and call it a constitution. We have to be frank with ourselves. We've got to be true to ourselves. We've got to be honest with ourselves.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ati Johnson. Let me go straight on to let me clap for Nigeria, because at least a group of people, an organization called Ilana Oduba, got itself together and they have served something on the Nigerian government. Elder Dele, over to you first. Constitutional force majeure. Has it got anything to do with Britain? Has it got anything to do with Britain? Constitutional force majeure.
My answer is this. I don't want to go so far as to say British government is not involved in Nigeria at the moment. That is not correct. Every government, every state has interests. Permanent interests is what they call. So there's a permanent interest in what goes on in Nigeria. The responsibility is different. The responsibility rests on us to change the game. This is what I want to make clear. Now, as regards the constitutional...
May I, a point of order. Can you be more specific? What interest are we talking about? What interest?
The interest is what it has always been, which is economic extraction of resources. It is Nigeria being a market of 200 million people for British goods and services. And also the source of raw materials for manufacture and production in England.
Please forgive me. Is that why Britain must get involved in dissolution of Nigeria?
Again, I've made it clear that it is not Britain that will get involved, or we asking them to get involved. They are involved because they have an interest in maintaining what has worked for them.
May I stop you there? What about China?
China has an economic interest in Nigeria.
Any other countries?
But it cannot be said that China has a political interest in Nigeria. That's the distinction.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's go on to this constitutional force majeure.
As regards that, it seems to me a little bit theatrical. It is valuable in this sense that there's an understanding that the fundamental problem with Nigeria is the constitutional arrangements. There is no constitution, is actual fact. A fraudulent document containing a fraudulent statement, we the people are making this instrument for our governance. Once that is established as a falsehood, it means that there is no constitution. That is not to say that those who are running the ship of states do not have a document, the 1999 document, which I called Instruments of Governance. You see, as a lawyer, when you draft a legal document, you can give it whatever name you like. The 1999 document, if our lawyers were crazy enough, could have been called the Constitution of the United Kingdom. That is just a name. But the reality of the document is what matters. The reality of that 1999 document is that it's not a settlement, a constitutional agreement of the peoples of Nigeria. And so the relevance of the force majeure is this, the declaration. It is simply shorthand on behalf of the people saying, we now know that we do not have a constitution. We now need a constitution. The people must be brought together, their representatives, not those ones in the National Assembly. They are not the representatives of the partner nations. It is the partner nations that must come round the table and formulate an agreement by which they're going to relate to each other. I hope that is clear.
Yes, thank you very much indeed. And whilst I'm going to go to Professor Salako, I'll be coming back to you. The people of Eastern Nigeria, for years, they've been trying to get out of Nigeria. Please tell me why they have not been able to leave.
The very short answer.
Hold on, Professor Salako. Let me invite Professor Salako, the Constitution Major. Anything else to add? I'll come back to you. Ogun, please. Biafrans, they want to leave. They've been wanting to leave for God knows how many years. Many of them were recently killed. Tell me why. What's the problem? Why can't they leave? They need the British to get them out? Please, over to you, Professor Salako. Over to you, Professor Salako. You need to unmute. You haven't unmuted yourself. You need to unmute. Yes.
Now, let us look at what happened during the Civil War. Before Ojukwu unilaterally declared the state of Biafra, they warned him that, well, he should consult Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, Dr. Francis Ibiam, and Dr. Pius Okibo, but he didn't do that. What happened then was a genocide. Now, on secession, prior to 1971, the problem was that, well, they felt that no one, secession was illegal. But as a matter of fact, there is nothing in international law that says you can secede. And there is nothing in international law that says you can secede. But we noticed that where Bangladesh left in 1971, just after the cessation of hostilities. And again, it appears as if you read the Kosovo advisory opinion, secession has been reconceptualized there, especially if you read the statement of the separate opinion of George Cancado Trindade, the Brazilian academic on the bench there. He said where it is difficult for a nation within a state to coexist with the others, or the coexistence becomes oppressive, so they have the right to go. You see, the question posed before, to the International Court of Justice in Kosovo advisory opinion was whether the declaration of independence by Kosovo was legal. And they answered that question in the affirmative. But their remits did not cover whether secession was illegal. But if you read the judgment closely, you will see that, well, there is nothing that states that, well, they can secede in international law. And there's nothing that states they cannot secede. After Kosovo advisory opinion, it appears as if, in fact, let me recast that statement. Secession has been reconceptualized by the Kosovo advisory opinion. In 1971, Bangladesh left. In 2011, South Sudan, after a referendum supervised by the United Nations, where 92% of the South Sudanese supported independence, left. And South Sudan was recognized as the 193rd state of the United Nations, and is now the 55th state of African Union. So what I'm trying to say is that, well, there's nothing stopping the Igbos and exercising their right to internal self-determination is not treason, as Buhari and his advisors are saying. In fact, I'm prepared to write an opinion for the Nigerian government that every unit has the right to go if they decide to do so. And it could be tested legally. I'm ready to lead that. Be tested legally. They have the right to go. Kosovo advisory opinion is a very strong case. And it's even worrying for the West. That is my submission. There's nothing stopping them from going. And Buhari has no right to call that treason. Or anybody.
Let me put it in layman's terms. Okay?
Yes.
All these politicians voted for by the people of Eastern Nigeria are still in place. So, although they have a right to get rid of themselves from the contraction, to use the word that Nigerians normally use, can you assist us to understand why there is this ups and downs? The Eastern politicians, the politicians of Biafra, they're still involved in Nigerian government. And the people are still asking they want to get out. How do we reconcile this if really they want to get out? I'm using the Biafrans as an example because they are the ones that historically, they're looking at history, who've been trying to go. And you use the word genocide? My goodness. The last one was tragic to see young people massacred.
In fact, to put it mildly, what happened to the Igbos before 1967 was a pogrom. It was a pogrom perpetrated by the Hausas. And that's the way I say it. But what they should be trying to exercise is their internal right to self-determination. If that's what they are pursuing in international law, they are formidable. There is nothing Buhari or anybody can do about that. Nobody has challenged Nicholas Sturgeon of treason here. Nobody has accused Nicholas Sturgeon.
May I seek clarification? You said the Hausas. Yes. You know, this word Hausa, is it, forgive my speaking from English perspective, is the word Hausa the same as Northerners? Or Hausas are different to Northerners? When you said the Hausas, so who did we have in place? Was it Yeah, I don't understand how Nigeria works.
Let me clarify what I'm saying.
Please.
The Hausa Fulani are a minority in the north.
Yes.
I'm referring to the Hausa Fulani hegemony.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm referring to that.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Now,
Let me
if
go
it's the
straight
right
to
to self-determination, nobody can stop them. Nobody.
Okay. Let me go straight on to Dele Ogun. Where are you on this issue? The Igbos have been trying to get out.
Yes, I hear and hear Professor Salako. When the Igbos tried to get out, it was not law that stopped them, but force that stopped them. And there is a distinction between legal rights and political power. So when people say that it's got nothing to do with the British and stop blaming them, there's a little bit of history helps. Understand who supplied the weaponry to the federal side to stop the Igbos leaving. People know what they want to do with themselves. Each of the ethnic groups know what they want for themselves. It is not ignorance. There are political actors that are blocking the way. So please, all this talk about let's forget the past.
Thank you. Well, hang on. We cannot forget the past. Let's go to current. Today, there seems to be overwhelmingly convincing evidence that what is going on in the country called Nigeria is a total breakdown of law and order. Total breakdown of law and order. I want us to look at if this were happening in another country in the world, this total breakdown of law and order, have you seen clips with heads chopped off? People being raped, cows storming the streets when the streets are not the jungle. And the incredible thing is 100 million naira paid for ransom to be able to release. And kidnapping is a lucrative business. Let me ask you, what have you got in Nigeria? Dictatorship or democracy?
Clearly, again, it is, you see, democracy is just a label. And when you have a country parading as a democracy or a federal republic, those are just names. Our names are not who we are. Dele Ogun is not who I am. That's simply a name. The reality of me is very, very different. Similarly, as far as Nigeria is concerned, you can use whatever decoration, makeup, cosmetics to make it look pretty. But the reality of what we have is anarchy, a state of lawlessness. We have representatives who are not representing anybody. So it is each man for himself.
Let me go to that as an example. I find it just beyond understanding when you say to an average Nigerian, go and put your desires to your governor, they'll say, you can't get them. They are not available. Then I find it also concerning. Question to you now, Professor Salako. They keep shouting about the monarchs. Where are the monarchs? And what power? Where are the monarchs? This monarch, please. What has this whole total mess got to do with the monarchs of Yoruba land? For example.
Well, yes, can I respond to that?
Please go ahead.
Can I respond to that?
Please do.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes. when we had the Western region, the House of Obas was incorporated into the constitutional system. And the Obas are represented. But that is not the case now. You see? We need to incorporate them into any constitutional setup, even when we decide to go, we need to incorporate them into the constitutional setup. Whether we create a house for the traditional rulers, whereby they will join in the deliberative process there. And that is how we can keep the institution alive. That's how we can keep the institution alive.
Thank you.
It was part of the Western system before.
Thank you. Sylvester Kimonuno. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Over to you, 2 minutes. Sylvester Akinawonu, I think so. Are you there? Sylvester Akinawonu. Right, okay. I have Afolabi. That person hasn't spoken. Afolabi.
Sorry, I'm just unmute myself. Sylvester.
Okay.
Yeah.
Please, Afolabi, your line is not very good, so we can't proceed.
Good evening.
Afolabi, your line is not very good. I'm sorry, your line is not very good. We cannot proceed. Afolabi, your line is not very good. I'm sorry, we cannot.
Yeah, I'm here now, Sylvester. Yeah.
Sylvester, over to you now, please.
Thank you, Ma, for allowing me. In conclusion to my own understanding, to me, we don't have any constitutions because what we have is not what we voted for. Then concerning the British government, I've never told the people the right thing because what the government is doing is different from what they are telling the British people. And number three, every country, they are looking for their own interests. Like Dele said, it's the interest of what they are getting from Nigeria. That is why they will hold on to the Hausa people or to the Northerners to be in government. Then number four is that we have to move. It's we that have to move because they will never move because they are benefit. The benefactor will never move the whole thing because they are benefit. We are the one that's supposed to move the situations. We know where the shoe is pinning our leg. Then number four, there's a saying that no matter how far you go in a wrong road, you will still be in the wrong road. You make a U-turn because you think that we are going so far. But if you make a U-turn and start on a right road, if it's just 1 mile, you know that 1 mile is on right road. But you have been on 100 miles, which is wrong road. It's still a wrong road. So we are on a wrong road. No matter how we look at it, we have to come back. We have to come back and decide what we want. And what we want is for us to have confederation. What we experience in America, let's take it. The system we have in America, let's take it to the fullest. The state has their autonomy.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much indeed. It's getting technical. Referendum. Would that be the answer? Referendum. Referendum? Will that be the answer? The contraption. People want to separate. Referendum. Any role to play in achieving a quick dissolution? Or at least determining whether there is evidence of genuine desire for the nations to go their ways. Alagbadele Ogun referendum.
Yes, well, referendum is shorthand for the people's voice. What the people want is as simple as that. Referendum is just technical term. Broken down, it means the people. What do they want? And the way forward ultimately will be, whether those who are standing in our way like it or not, it will be the will of the people. And the referendum is clearly the way forward.
Thank you very much indeed. Let me be more compassionate and go to Professor Salako. I have just heard this evening that the people of Nigeria believe that Britain has a role to play in the dissolution of their country. You have stated quite clearly that this has got nothing to do with Britain. But I've heard arguments which suggest, oh, Britain has got interests, and that economic interest is significant enough for Britain to enable the divorce of a polygamy. It's a polygamous relationship. So, Professor, the dissolution of this polygamy, how is realistically, please, as we come to the end of this program, the people of Nigeria religiously believe we, the British, are still in charge. If it's not psychologically, physically, economically, and all that you can imagine, that the British are so powerful. Without the British, they can't go their separate ways. Now, realistically, if people believe that the British will facilitate the answer, what is the responsible thing that Great Britain need to do to enable the dissolution of this polygamous relationship?
The honest answer is that we need a referendum. The type of referendum I would suggest is a referendum supervised by the United Nations.
Yes, that's the best one.
And I cannot see Britain standing in our way. I cannot see that happening at all. If we decide to go, if that is what we want to do. They had a sway over Sudan, if you are aware of that. And yes, Sudan voted by 92%. It was supervised by the United Nations. They were immediately recognized by the United Nations and made the 193rd state. Immediately they were made the 193rd state of the United Nations. African Union made them the 55th. And that's why we have 55 states in the African Union now.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Shalaoni, you are a promoter of a sense of machinery that you intend to come and drop on our doorstep in Britain. Tell us one of them and why you believe that you should bring your petition to Britain. Over to you.
Well, the petition really is to the United Nations.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Which the idea, it's a simple one, that because the United Nations Charter allows us to self-determination if we want to, therefore the thing to do is to approach the United Nations and ask to look into it. And this is the basis of the petition that are currently being signed. And I'm pleased to say actually that it's beginning to get a lot more attention than originally. Now,
thank you.
The problem that we have is that in Nigeria, it's almost as if we don't. I don't know whether we just don't know what to do, or whether we're, I don't know whether we're cowardly or whether it's very difficult, because all we do is we go around this cycle of debating and debating and debating without actually deciding to do something. And at the present time, Nigeria cannot continue the way it is. It's not possible. Because
Doctor, please, thank you. You know why I have decided to say thank you? You know, you've been a key player on this platform called Agbakunitoni Oodua. And what is the objective of Agbakunitoni Oodua? It is to remove misunderstanding
That's fine.
To remove conflict. It is to open door for cohesion. And my style is to bring good people like you, and thank you for coming time and time. What we have achieved on this platform are the following. One, we've been able to make it quite clear that it is the child who raised the arms that the mother will carry. It's down to us. And thank you. I'm delighted that you are not bringing your petition to BRICS. Keep it there. United Nations. You know why? Because also recently, Yoruba and Igbo, hand in hand, they took themselves to one organization called UNPO. They took themselves there to go and register. So let me very quickly go to Alagba. Dele Ogun, Alagba means elder. Please, UNPO, Igbo and Yoruba, they went together to register themselves with UNPO. Tell me about that. What was the rationale? Will that take us far? Take us far? Free ourselves from Britain and get on with our business. Will UNPO registration enable our own self-determination internally without bringing the external involvement? Over to you.
I'm not sure that that initiative of itself will get us to where we want to get to, but every single step that builds an understanding amongst our people, because that is what is missing, to understand how we got to where we are and to understand the way forward. So that initiative is to be supported and complemented because it raises awareness and understanding. But it's not the silver bullet. I will, in my closing comments, deal with the way forward. But those registrations, they're just steps in the right direction.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody for joining me today. I regret I have no further room for comments from the Zoom area. However, I'm going to allow the next 10-15 minutes for final thoughts from all my guest speakers. If Professor Olutayo Adesina is still with us, he'll be the last. But let me go to Dele Ogun. At the end of today, have we been able to answer the question? Are we further forward? Are we further forward in being clear without wasting more time beating around the bush? The best way forward for the project called Nigeria to be put back on track or to be totally got rid of. Over to you.
Erelu, again, thank you. I shall be brief, but quickly trot through some of the standout comments, because Nigerians are often unfair on themselves when they say we talk too much. It depends what you're talking about. The developed countries never stop talking. They're always discussing with a view to understanding. Yes, Nigerians like to shut down conversation. It's only when you're talking nonsense, things that will not move you forward, that you can say you talk too much. When you're discussing things that will move you forward, every conversation is important. And there's some useful points that have come out this evening that I've learned. Shola Akinawonu said, no matter how long you have been on a wrong road, it will still be the wrong road. Austin Otta said, it is the truth that will set you free. And it is that search for truth that we're looking for. Dr. Sholaoni I have to say that I'm surprised by his comments because he's a medical doctor who's telling us that the past doesn't matter. But as a medical doctor, I'm not a medical doctor, but I know that they will ask you, do you have any hereditary conditions? Because the past is relevant to the present. And the suggestion that they left us to it is attractive to believe, but permanent interest means they never go to sleep. We must come to terms with that reality. They're ever vigilant. They know more about our country than we know about our country. So please get away from this thinking that they are asleep and we just have to do what we want to do. They're not. Oba Olatujoye said the Yoruba were deterred from enlisting in the army. That is correct. That was all part of the process by which Nigeria was handed over to Fulani rule. Some groups were encouraged into the army, others were excluded. Erelu herself said, the British left us the parliamentary system and we went to the presidential system. Well, she's right. We had a parliamentary system, but I think the explanation as to how we got to the presidential system is where the devil lies. Because it is not the Nigerian people that wanted the presidential system. Somebody else wanted the presidential system. Why? Because the presidential system is like colonial rule. It is command, top down. Whereas the parliamentary system, can you imagine if today Buhari had to face Awolowo every day under cross-examination? So those who did it knew what they were doing. Dr. Ngozika, I hope I've pronounced the name correctly, she's quite right that the history of the Civil War was missed in the opening comments. And of course, it is an essential part of our history because it's relevant to all this discussion, to those who are saying, get on with it, leave if you want to leave, as if the war never happened, as if weapons and starvation was not used to force those who said, no, okay, it's not working for us, we're going. And yet they were forced to stay. Starvation, bombs and bullets. So that is the part of the history that we must take on board and embrace. Ambassador Grant Eyobuche, unfortunately, we didn't get to hear that much from him, but he did say that amalgamation made Northern Protectorate preponderant. Again, that is the British architecture that we're talking about. We have to understand it. Jemima Danjuma, I did smile a lot when she was speaking. He was seeking to persuade her that persuade us that history is not relevant. Yet she said she loves history. What a contradiction. But even her name suggests history, does it not? When you hear the name Danjuma, what do you think of? Is a historical character. To suggest that the past does not matter, when she every day of her life will say, I am Jemima Danjuma, and immediately will say, well, you're not a relation of so-and-so. Thank you very much, TJ Danjuma, we're reminded. So please, do not try and tell us that history is not relevant. It is relevant to, and then secondly, these are important points. I'm wrapping up. We've heard people who spend their time reading the Old Testaments, the Christian side of Nigeria. And then we have those ones reading the Quran, the Muslim side of Nigeria. And yet they tell us the history is not relevant. The things that happened in the last 100 years, they say we should ignore it while we're spending all our time reading ancient history about Arabia and Israel. So please tell us not that history is not relevant. Professor Olutai Adesina, I just wanted to make the point that it is not that the present generation is no longer interested in history. They're not taught history. It was removed from the syllabus, so we can't blame our people for the condition that they're in when history is removed from the syllabus. What kind of country removes history from the syllabus, except to keep our people in captivity. And Professor Salako, one of his comments I just want to touch on, he said that the imbalance between North and South was built into the 1960 Constitution. He is so right. And it is that imbalance that we're still seeking to address. Finally, in terms of the way forward, because Erelu always reminds me that Jemima Danjuma says, I'm not a Muslim, actually I'm a Christian. Well, that confirms my point that ancient history in the Old Testament and the New Testament is what we spend our time studying when we go to church, etc. And yet we're saying the history of the last 100 years, 200 years is not relevant. That clearly cannot be right. On the way forward, it's simple. You cannot solve a problem until you understand it. Our people have not been able to solve the problem. Those who say, oh, we've been there since 1960 and we've been talking since 1960. Why haven't we solved it? It's because we haven't understood it. History, as I said, was removed from the syllabus. Nobody is explaining. And as Erelu said, this is a court. Evidence becomes available. Evidence that was hidden in terms of how the independence elections were rigged is only now surfaced. So are we being fair to ourselves to say you should have solved the problem when evidence was hidden from view? Finally, as I said at the beginning, we must keep in mind that the British governments are not the same as the British people. The British people are like you and I. They're on our side. It was a British person, Harold Smith, who brought that missing piece of evidence to our consciousness. Remember that. We're not against the British people. We're only against the British government to the extent that they want to keep us in a condition where in 2021, we still do not have light. Erelu, you've done well again. Thank you very much. I hand you back.
Thank you very much indeed. And as we come to the end of this, how dare I not pose this next question? And the next question goes to Professor Solomon Salako, because at the heart of your contribution today, you mentioned our sage, Papa Chief Obafemi Awolowo. Now, if he were here today with us, I wonder, having spent time reading his book or books, based on that, what would he say is the way forward? That's one last question I want to put to you before you then share your thoughts about today. Over to you, Professor Salako.
How do you want me to respond? Do I respond by first commenting on Chief Obafemi Awolowo?
Please.
And then give my points?
Please, thank you.
Yeah. On Chief Obafemi Awolowo, I'm sure that if Papa Awolowo were around today, he would have rejected federalism. I'm 100% sure that he would have rejected federalism. Knowing what we know now, he would have rejected it totally. And I can glean this from his books, especially his autobiography, Awu, which I read frequently. He would have rejected federalism because he would have had a long reflection on what had transpired. And I can see why Pa Awolowo did not join the Constituent Assembly that drafted the 1979 Constitution. He was invited, but he declined. So I can see why he didn't join Chief Rotimi Williams. And as we are aware, Pa Awolowo was the first president, in fact, was the president who bought the first set of law books for Chief F.R.A. Williams. when he was the legal advisor of the Action Group. That is that. Now, my observations.
Before you go any further, I've just had a question.
Yes.
Why was when he departed this world, we got this comment, the president that Nigeria should have had. Just remind us, talking about history, why did he go to president?
Nepa was.
Sorry?
That Nepa was.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Please, remind us history. Why did he end up in prison?
Well, if in fact I've commented on that in my long paper.
Yes.
Why he ended up there. What happened was that, well, we can blame it on constitutionalism. When Thatcher was removed from the Conservative Party,
yes,
nobody filed a writ in this country. Now, when Akintola was removed, there was an appeal to the Privy Council. And it was clear, if you read SL Akintola and Alhaji Adegbenro, you will see that, well, he lost here, he lost in at the Privy Council. I think that was the beginning of the crisis in the Action Group. But in order to get rid of Chief Obafemi Awolowo, he had to seek the support of the Northerners. You see, if you read the history of Yorubas very well, and I'm sure Dr. Dele Ogun will be able to confirm this, the history of Afonja is similar to what transpired between Chief Awolowo and Chief SL Akintola. And Chief SL Akintola wouldn't have been Awolowo's deputy if Bode Thomas were alive. But that's a different story entirely. So that was what started it. And at that time, Awolowo knew that he would be arrested and he would go to prison. And he knew also that eventually he would be released. It was interesting to listen to the speech he made when he was sentenced.
Thank you for that.
Let me now comment. Let me make my comments. I have 4 comments to make.
Thank you.
One, I want to thank Dr. Dele Ogun for taking us through Nigerian constitutional history about what transpired prior to independence and why we are still struggling with that. And I want to respond to those who feel that, well, we should forget history. On history, the best president to quote is Carl Santayana, who said, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. That's number one. Number two, the question whether the British or the British government are friends or enemies. I want to state emphatically that states do not have friends. They have interests. And that the British government still have interests in Nigeria today. And those interests are inimical to our interests.
Mm-hmm.
The third one is that the internal right to self-determination is part of customary international law. It's unfortunate that, well, most of the Nigerians based in Nigeria do not realize that, probably because international law happens to be part of my remit. Because most of my research recently is based on war and peace studies, especially the Kosovo advisory opinion. I think if anybody who wants to assert the right to self-determination, I urge the person to read the Kosovo advisory opinion, especially the separate opinion of just Judge Augusto Cancado Trindade, the Brazilian academic. And again, last, on the Constitution, we keep on mentioning the fact that, well, we tried the presidential system, it failed. We tried the American system, it failed. Now, my reading of the 1979 Constitution is not that at all. The 1979 Constitution is a mishmash of the British Constitution, the American Constitution, the Irish Constitution, and the Indian Constitution. Why am I saying this? It's because of the fundamental objectives and directive principles of state policy, which was part of the 1979 Constitution.
It does not make justice.
It was an Irish invention. Hello? It was an
Please do
Irish
not interrupt, please.
Yes.
Thank you.
It was an Irish invention, which again was copied in the Indian Constitution and again found its way into the 1979 Constitution. So the 1979 Constitution, which was produced as a result of the deliberations of a Constituent Assembly chaired by Chief F.R.A. Williams, is a mishmash of US Constitution, British Constitution, Constitution of the Republic of Ireland, and Indian Constitution. So we should stop saying that, well, part British, part American, because of fundamental objectives and directive policies of state government, state policy. As a matter of fact, if you read the case of Jakonde and Parents Teachers Association, in fact, I was led by Chief Roti Williams and Professor Babatunde Kasumu, Alfred Babatunde Kasumu, in that case. In fact, that was my first major case that I handled in Nigeria. Professor Kasumu was brought in order to bring in quite a lot of cases, American cases. I was brought in order to bring in my knowledge of the Irish Constitution, the Indian Constitution, and then the British Constitution. So I want to say that, well, the 1979 Constitution is a mishmash of the US Constitution, the British Constitution, the Constitution of the Republic of Ireland, and the Constitution of India. That is my little addendum.
Thank you very much indeed. At this junction, permits me to welcome someone who has kindly joined us and has listened to our deliberations today, and that is the daughter of our great sage, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, who incidentally is also from Awolowo Foundation, and that is Our Excellency, Ambassador Dr. Olatokunbo Awolowo Dosunmu. May I invite you to share your thoughts on what has gone on today. Over to you. Welcome, Yeye.
Once again, thank you very much, Lu, for a brilliant session. I've enjoyed listening to everybody. The papers, the presentations have been awesome. And I don't have very much to add except to to give my own opinion about what Papa might have done if he was alive. Hindsight is always a fine thing. Hindsight is always a fine thing, and it's all. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I think you are
Yes,
getting
sir.
interruption from someone. Please
Yes.
hold on a moment. Please exit, mute yourself. Let me just mute everybody. And then let me just mute everybody. Yourself. Oh, please exit. Sylvester, please exit.
Sylvester, mute yourself.
Hold on a second, please. Let me just try and sort this out. Obviously, he doesn't realize he's interrupting. You may continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very quickly, just to maybe correct a few impressions that are out there. On the issue of federalism, Chief Awolowo had been an avowed supporter of the idea of federalism since 1933, when he was 24 years old. And until he left Mother Earth, he never recanted. He remained steadfast, a steadfast federalist. I remember about a year before he passed away, we didn't know he was going, but he had conversations and meetings with some of his closest associates. And there was always an argument. Some of them felt that, given what they had been through at the hands of Nigeria, that there was a need to rethink and perhaps go the confederalist way or some other suggestions. But throughout, Papa remained steadfast. Now, we can say that he believed in humanity more than he should have. Well, that was who he was. He believed that people should play fair, and he believed that all things being equal, federalism is the best route for Nigeria. But he also believed at the end that something had gone so fundamentally wrong in Nigeria that when he was invited by Dr. Kuki to the Constitution Drafting Committee, I think it was, in 1986, he declined. And his reason was that that nothing could change unless Nigerians change, but that he didn't see Nigerians changing unless God inspired them to change. And his last sentence was the most instructive in that letter, where he said that, of course, Nigeria could settle for a situation of permanent instability and chaos. And that, I think, is what is playing out now. So I believe that if Papa was still alive, first of all, his leadership would make a difference. There's no doubt about that, because he had the trust of the people, and he would be able to explain. And of course, he was always able to get people around him, eggheads like we have listened to tonight, to think through and talk through and work through the problems. So I just want to correct that federalism is still our best bet. Ultimately, right now, we have to discuss in Nigeria whichever option which we opt for, whether we want to dissolve the union, whether we want to go for federalism or some other system. We need to talk about it, because the other option is conflict, And I'm not sure that a lot of people are ready for conflict or wish for conflict. They may do, but I hope that is not the case. I'm a pacifist, as you probably understand. But we must not be stampeded into conflict. We must not be precipitate about it. We must be very, very deliberate about what we do from here on in. So I thank you very much, Erilu, once again, and I hope I have been able to clarify a few things here. Thank you all.
Your Excellency, thank you very much for joining us. Very busy, but thank you for taking time out to come on, be part of the listening group. And that's the important message I want to leave us with. In England, we'll say it's either Jojo or war, war. And in Yoruba, we'll say, let me say it in Yoruba first, money, Ejo la nkoro. Ejo, we have to be able to use words to state a case. Anyone who turns to the fists will at some point still come back to Jojo. Well, I guess we've had an opportunity today to Jojo. And I want to borrow from the book of Dele Ogun, what the English are known for. What has contributed to the success of Great Britain is the capacity to tolerate Jojo. Jojo is very important, but it's okay for me to say Jojo when mass killings seems to be going on in Nigeria. But regardless of that, we all know that it is very clear the relationship has broken down. Can one conclude irretrievably? I doubt it. For as long as the National Youth Service Corps has facilitated Nigerianization, it's very difficult now for us to completely separate ourselves in terms of relationship, in terms of nationhood. That's a different kettle of fish. Let me pick up a point at this junction and say, look out for an invitation to a gathering in the very near future to present to you the Yoruba referendum. A number of us would have seen that being circulated. And I'm sure there's a lot going with the other parts of the geographical area known as Nigeria. I want to thank all my guest speakers today for the time they've taken to think about and to plan the effective delivery of their contributions to us today. What this platform is all about, I repeat, is about information. Information is power. Misunderstanding is the biggest challenge for the whole world. And it's based on assumption. Assumption is the mother of misunderstandings. I started this evening assuming that the British should be kept out of this whole chaotic mess in Nigeria. But is it possible? It clearly isn't possible. For we are in a global world. When that disaster finally, unfortunately, emerge, should it do so in Nigeria, the whole world will have the unwanted consequences. First thing, we'll have many refugees, asylum seekers running around, as we did in the Biafran days. I had the privilege of a gentleman who was a mercenary, French, who came to settle in England. And my first term as a mayor in England, this person presented me with a book, handwritten, of the part they played in getting the children of Biafra to another part of the world, where I dare say not all of them have been able to find their way back. I read with horror how the band put on their wrists with local names had to be taken off, because at the end of the day, who they were going to would not be able to pronounce or read those names. Every day I wonder what's happened to those children. Did all of them come back, or they've all disappeared into thin air? What's going on in Ogun State at the moment, I dare bring to the fore again 5,000 indigenes of Ogun State moved out into the Republic of Benin. Well, overwhelmingly convincing evidence suggests that relationship needs attention. Relationship is work in progress. I hope and pray that those of us who have the time to continue to joy and facilitate understanding, I hope we shall continue to do so. Once again, Dele Ogun, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your dedication. Thank you very much for the planning you put into this. Without that, that clip that we consider historic wouldn't be available. Professor Salako, wow, an extremely busy man. From the moment I've met you, you've always said one thing: if you ever need me, call on me, and I'll be there. And you've gone as far as saying, should legal representation be required at the level of United Nations, free service available to us to be able to do what is right in order for us, for everybody to have what should not cost us a penny, peace in our life. On that note, I want to pray that you continue to be in the company of peace in everything you do. Like Oliver Twist, I shall be knocking your door again. Professor Lutayo, Deshino, I haven't noticed you still on the platform. You're just the same. Thank you very much for regularly feeding into the program of Agba Kuni Tony Leojo. And I shall not forget Bashi Mwalabe, Dr. Cholauni. His title is Bashi Mwalabe. Thank you so much. And please, at some point, if you want to sign this petition going to United Nations, definitely that can be made available to you if you already don't know where it is. Councillor Leslie Ayola from Nottingham Council in the United Kingdom, thank you very much for joining us. His Excellency, Ambassador Dr. Grant Yobuche, I'm so sorry that the poor facility has actually denied us the opportunity to hear you. I dare say at some point I'll bring you back to all the contributors from Dr. Ngozika to Jemima. By the way, Jemima is a staunch Christian. Wow, Jemima is a prayer warrior. Jemima is a strong Christian, but by the name Jemima, most people think she's a Muslim. Again, Jemima, thank you for all you did in the past when we were all members of the Nigerian National Union, struggling to achieve cohesion that we're still struggling with today. all those I haven't mentioned, in particular, those who are watching me live. Thank you, Mauritania, always here. Those who are watching me live, whichever country you're in, I want to say, one hand cannot clap. 2 hands need to be put together. That cohesion is extremely important. Whether we finally exercise the right to self-determination and what is now 4 corners becomes one book of 4 corners, open up to different parts of the geographical area. But we can't invite former President of the United States to come and help us build walls between ourselves. That is not physically possible. Let me conclude by saying a gigantic thank you to all of you for your time today, especially the expense of data. Those of you who are in Nigeria. Honorable Vincent Ubani, a tower of strength, moving young people of Nigeria towards meaningful participation. I want to thank you very, very, very much for what you continue to do for young people. On that note, I wish all of you an enjoyable weekend. It's Friday tomorrow. Peace today. Blessings always. I thank you for joining me. I am Erelu Tuwashe, saying a very good night until we come back on the subject of referendum. I say good night all, and thank you very much for joining me.